Well, I'm going to now tell you something that probably completely impossible for most people to believe, which is that within a few weeks you can go back for another medical test, and all your medical tests can show you have no heart disease. You can go, spend the 6 hours, do the test, the same test that you got diagnosed with the first time, and they'll come out completely turned around. And this will take, not that long, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever, Obviously, you'll have to drop your cholesterol, and I'm going to tell you, you can do that at will. So, I think probably a bunch of people have turned this movie off after having heard that. If you're now still here, how do we start? Good question. Well, okay, let's just have a fantasy. Let's create a fantasy. You're driving along on the expressway, and all of a sudden this weird light comes around your car, and you are given a message. And the message is that you can do this. You have the ability to do this. You're told that. And this time it isn't like a jerk in the park, in this, I'm in a wildlife area here, with a video camera telling you this is like some major, like, supernatural power, probably God, talking to you, and you're going like, oh my God, thank you. You're really letting it in. It's just impossible for you because you have this direct experience, You're having this direct experience of something. So it's impossible for you not to realize that you're being told the literal truth. You're able to do this. Okay, the question is, would you know how? Would you know where to start? And before you can think of asking that question, the light begins to disappear. And as it's disappearing, you're going, hey, wait a minute, but how do I do this? Okay, I can do it, but how do I do this? And then it's gone. And you look up and there's a cop writing you a speeding ticket because you got a little heavy-footed, when you were letting in this profound knowledge. You're going 90 miles an hour. Anyway, that's the question, and I'm going to tell you that there's one answer, one thing to pay attention to, and it's a signal. Maybe you did lesson number 1, so there's 4 signals, okay? And I'm telling you there's one signal. This one signal, and this signal is the thread that leads you out of the darkness and into the light. It leads you out of the helplessness. If you listen to the people in the Cure shows, and one thing they often say at the end of the show is that they don't feel helpless anymore. I'm 63, okay? And, I would have probably had a heart attack by now. Or cancer, very likely, since I took a lot of acid in the 60s. I was taking LSD before Jerry Garcia and essentially addicted to it. And that's what you get prostate cancer from. Now, I don't know how much of a stretch it is for you to realize that if all these people that you see in the cancer cure shows cured those cancers, you can cure heart disease. They're both hard, That's what they have in common. They're both hard to cure. I will admit, because when we talk about curing things around here, a lot of times we talk about 5 minutes, You're curing, your time to your cure will be 5 minutes. Listen to the flu cure shows. You're never going to be sick another day in your life if you start doing this because, you're not going to get the flu anymore. And you know what? Old people die of the flu. So, and maybe you're like me, maybe you're over 60, and you're starting to think about that. You're starting to think about what flus can do to you. So when you hear people curing the flu in 15 minutes, they come on the show with flu, and they get off the show 15 minutes later with no flu. So when you look at them and you go, okay, but I'm telling you, okay, heart disease is harder. Cancer's harder. People can cure cancer. You can cure heart disease. So, the question is, what is this signal? And like, how do you interact with this? I mean, the real question is, how do you interact with this signal? Like what place does the signal that I'm talking about have in your life? That's really what you're going to have to address. And if you can address that and really confront it directly and do something with it, then you can be free of your DNA, which is what, heart disease is DNA based. A lot of it is anyway. Because if somebody else even eats wrong or whatever, they'll get something else, but they won't get a heart attack, Like, also I'll say that maybe you're not that old, Maybe you're in your 30s and you're just here because you're scared. Heart disease runs in your family and you don't want heart disease. So you decided to do a little proactive research before the wolf is at the door. You're going to build a brick house. And I think that's a good idea. That was good, So if you feel maybe like I'm not talking to you because, you're not over 60, okay, now I am, all right? The funny thing about that metaphor I gave you before is that there was a woman named Miriam. She called me years ago. And I always keep my phone number on the website so people call me. People call me all the time. And she had something like what I was talking about this blinding epiphany, She had it in a dream, And in the dream, she was told that she had in her DNA, a tendency for breast cancer. And there wasn't really any breast cancer in her family. I mean, I think her mother died of Alzheimer's, and there were all these, I don't totally remember this. This is years ago that she got in touch with me. But she called me and she told me about this dream, and she didn't know where to start. And this is where I got this idea of talking about this, because she really didn't know what to do, And we didn't have cure shows then, so I made some recommendations to her about, using the stuff on the web. And back then we didn't have movies and we didn't have cure shows, and we basically had very little audio or no video. And, I never heard from her again. I don't know what happened with her. It's too bad, because she was following something. She had an awakening. And she also told me that, here's an interesting thing, our web page came up. She wasn't actually searching on the thing that the web page that came up was about. We have thousands of web pages, and that's one thing we had. Back when she called me, we had over 1,000 web pages on the web about various things. And she's told me that the web page came up from something that she was searching on, but it had no relevance to the web page. And when she saw that anomalous page in the search, she said she knew this was important. So I was really surprised that I never heard from her again, But I guess that's what happens to people. And maybe that's because they don't start getting and paying attention to this signal. Because, all those signals I told you about were important, in lesson 1. But one of them, that's the one that leads you out of the darkness. The others are just signals. But this one, and it's not the finger movement. I bet you're starting to guess what it is, right?